The chapter opens on a scene of heavy, suffocating silence, broken only by the ragged breathing of our protagonist. Gislan lies in his bed, his body battered and exhausted after a grueling series of consecutive battles against a relentless onslaught of enemies. He is drenched in a thick layer of cold sweat, his muscles still twitching from the memory of combat, when suddenly, his eyes snap open. But he isn't greeted by the familiar ceiling of his room. Instead, he finds himself looking up at a sky choked by darkness. Massive, swirling clouds in the shape of a terrifying tornado loom over the capital of Cardinia, and the air itself seems to tear open. Mysterious portals manifest across the heavens, and from these jagged rifts, horrific monsters begin to pour out, descending upon the capital like a plague. Below him, the city is a vision of hell. Cardinia is burning, the flames consuming everything in their path as the monstrous horde encircles the once great capital. Gislan watches this devastation from a spectral vantage point, hovering above the carnage like a ghost. He is paralyzed by a sense of profound shock, his mind racing as he wonders if this is a fragment of a memory from his past life. He begins to tremble, the sight of this unmitigated horror forcing him to realize that this is the nightmare he lived through. The deep, blood-red sky, the inexplicable rifts tearing through the fabric of the continent, and the bizarre, otherworldly creatures that emerged to turn their world upside down. This was the era of the Great Calamity, the moment when the 7 strongest individuals of the continent, Gislan included, were forced to finally take a stand and act with everything they had. As he hovers there, Gislan is plagued by the question of why he is witnessing this specific scene now. His phantom gaze is soon drawn to a lone figure, a knight charging headlong into the fray. This mysterious warrior sets his sights on a particularly grotesque monster, a beast whose head is composed of multiple human skulls fused together, with a glowing core of concentrated aura pulsing at the center of its chest. The knight, distinguished by his long, flowing white hair, charges forward with an unnatural sense of calm, seemingly undisturbed by the chaos surrounding him. Gislan, watching with bated breath, questions the identity of the stranger. With a movement so fast it almost defies the eye, the mysterious knight swings a massive sword. In a single, fluid motion, he cleanly severs the arm of the monster as it attempts to strike. Without losing momentum, the white-haired warrior drives his blade deep into the creature's chest, aiming directly for the aura core. He gives the sword a powerful twist, rotating the steel to tear a gaping, hollow void where the monster's life force once resided. Gislan is captivated and confused. He is certain this man does not exist in his memories of the war, yet something about the knight feels hauntingly familiar. The knight continues his dance of death, engaging yet another monster. This time, he parries a heavy blow with effortless precision before shattering the beast's core with a pinpoint strike. Gislan's eyes widen in sudden realization as he observes the technique. He recognizes that specific brand of swordsmanship. It is the legendary sword of the Perdium family. This isn't just any style. It is the ideal sword. A level of mastery that transcends everything Gislan ever knew about his own family's martial arts. Just as the knight finishes his strike, another monster creeps up from his blind spot, lunging toward his shoulder. Gislan, caught up in the vision, screams out a warning, but the knight is already reacting. Sensing the threat through a thin curtain of mana he has spread around his body, the warrior detects the monster's blade the moment it touches his aura. He dodges with feline grace, parries the follow-up, and delivers a lethal counter-blow without even needing to turn his head. Gislan is left in awe, begging the vision to show him more, reaching out his hand toward the mysterious figure in a desperate plea for just one more moment of clarity. But as he reaches out in the vision, his hand finds purchase in the physical world. He snaps awake, his hand gripping Belinda's arm. Belinda is visibly startled by the sudden movement, explaining that she was only trying to wipe away his sweat because he looked like he was trapped in a terrible nightmare. Gislan slowly pulls himself back to reality, letting out a heavy, shaky breath as he apologizes. To himself, he confirms that it was just a dream, though his heart is still hammering against his ribs and his breath remains short. Belinda, ever concerned, places a gentle hand on his forehead, asking if he is hurt or if he needs her to fetch a restorative elixir. Gislan, trying to regain his composure, simply tells her that he is fine. He pushes himself out of bed and begins to dress, while Belinda updates him on the latest political developments. She informs him that a messenger has arrived from Marquis Branford in the capital. The message is significant. Now that Gislan has officially ascended to the title of Count, he is formally authorized to take command of the Northern Army. Gislan takes a moment to process this, acknowledging his new status as Count Fenris. His thoughts then turn to his comrade, Gillian. He asks Belinda how he is faring, and she offers a reassuring smile. She tells him not to worry, as Gillian is currently overflowing with energy. It seems the intensive treatment provided by Priestess Pyot was remarkably effective. Relieved by the news, Gislan's tone shifts to one of leadership. He orders Belinda to summon his vassals immediately, declaring that it is time to prepare for their next major step. The scene then shifts away from the serious atmosphere of the manor to the Fenris Magic Tower bridge, where Alfoy is in the middle of a heated outburst. He is shouting at someone, incredulous that they would have the audacity to ask him for a donation. His target is none other than Priestess Pyote. Alfoy, radiating arrogance, demands to know how she could possibly think of shaking down the leader of the Fenris magic tower for money. Pyote, caught off guard by his aggression, stammers out a defense, insisting that she isn't trying to steal anything. She explains, with a trembling voice, that there are people in the territory who are suffering and in desperate need of a little help. Alfoy is completely unmoved. He laughs at her plea, claiming that if anyone is needy in this territory, it's him. He rants about his own perceived misfortunes, complaining that despite being the prestigious heir to the magic tower of flames, he is stuck living like an unpaid slave in this backwater end of the world. He mockingly asks her exactly how much of a deficit her charity is facing that she felt the need to come crawling to him. Pyote holds up a small, modest bag of gold coins, admitting that she only needs a few dozen more to meet their goals. At the sight of the gold, Alfoy's demeanor changes instantly. He begins to tremble, his eyes locking onto the coins with unmistakable greed. Sensing his hostility, Pyote begins to back away, apologizing for her ignorance of his difficult situation and telling him she will look for help elsewhere. But Alfoy, not wanting the gold to walk out the door, quickly stops her. He changes his tune, claiming he never explicitly said he wouldn't give her the money. Pyote is surprised by the sudden shift, but Alfoy leans in and whispers into her ear with a sly grin. He tells her that in his high-ranking position, simply handing money over to a priestess might look like a bribe. To avoid any scandal, he proposes a way for her to win the money fairly. They relocate to Alfoy's private office, where he begins to casually spin a gold coin on his desk. He explains the rules of a simple game, odd or even. It's clear to anyone watching that Alfoy's only intention is to swindle the priestess out of the gold she has already collected. Pyote is hesitant, pointing out that gambling is strictly forbidden by her order. She argues that because the root of all gambling is greed, participating would be a grave sin for a priestess. Alfoy dismisses her concerns with a huff, telling her she still has much to learn about the world. He insists this isn't gambling at all, but merely a creative justification for him to give her the funds. To prove how easy it is, he offers to go first. He flips the coin and calls out odd. Another mage standing nearby watches the coin land and announces that it is heads, meaning it's even. Alfoy fakes a look of frustration, cursing his luck and handing Pyote a coin, claiming he lost. He asks her if she sees how the game works now, but Pyote is still confused. Alfoy doubles down on his manipulation. He tells her that she isn't doing this for personal gain, but for the sake of the needy people she serves. He asks her what kind of fool would call a priestess's efforts to help others greed. This twisted logic finally gets through to her, and Pyote, feeling a sense of duty, agrees that his point makes sense. Excitedly, Alfoy declares that they are finally on the same page. The game begins in earnest. Alfoy flicks the coin high into the air, catching it on the back of his left hand and covering it quickly with his right. Pyote calls out even. Alfoy lifts his hand, and one of the other mages shakes his head, noting that it's a shame, but the result was odd. Alfoy smirks, noting that he won that round. They go again, and this time Pyote calls odd, but she loses once more. They continue the cycle, round after round, toss after toss, and slowly but surely, Pyote's once full bag of coins begins to dwindle until it is almost entirely empty. Pyote is now on the verge of a breakdown, crying out in desperation because she hasn't managed to win a single time. Alfoy, meanwhile, is having the time of his life, gloating internally about how much money he's raking in and laughing at how he's found such a perfect sucker to exploit. One of the other mages, unable to watch the slaughter any longer, leans over and tells Pyote she should stop. He reveals the truth. Alfoy is a scoundrel who is using magic to cheat, and there is no mathematical possibility of her winning. The revelation hits Pyote like a thunderbolt. She snaps, lunging at Alfoy and accusing him of being a dirty cheater. She screams at him to return her money immediately, but Alfoy remains smug. He asks her why he should give it back, claiming the money is rightfully his now. He then taunts her, asking if she's going to keep playing or if she's just going to give up on the needy people she claimed to care about. Pyote is reduced to tears, realizing she has only one solitary gold coin left in her possession. Driven by a mix of despair and a refusal to fail her mission, she demands one more round. Alfoy spins the coin again, his eyes glowing with a malicious, magical glint. Pyote closes her eyes and begins to pray with everything she has. Alfoy sneers at her, thinking that prayer is useless in the face of his coin-swapping magic. He boasts to himself that with this spell, not even a deity could defeat him. In this office, he is the god of odd or even. As Pyote prays, she begs for forgiveness from Goddess Wana, lamenting that her own ignorance has led her into this swamp of sin. A single tear rolls down her cheek as she pleads for the all-powerful and beautiful Wana to help her win this last toss. Suddenly, the atmosphere in the room shifts. A colossal pillar of divine light descends from the heavens, crashing through the roof of Alfoy's estate. Outside, the knights on guard duty watch in stunned silence as the sky splits open. The light focuses entirely on Pyote. She begins to glow with an ethereal radiance, and a shimmering halo manifests above her head. Alfoy and his mage companions are frozen in terror, their mouths agape. The mages recognize the phenomenon immediately from ancient legends, This is a divine revelation. The moment a saint chosen by the goddess receives a direct channeling of power, Pio begins to drift off the ground, floating in the center of the divine light. Alfoy breaks out in a cold, terrified sweat, wondering how on earth the goddess herself could be bothered to interfere in a petty game of odd or even. With a voice full of divine authority and absolute confidence, Pio looks down at him and calls even. She then demands that he open his hand, marking a miraculous power-up for the young priestess.